All right, good morning. Welcome, everyone. Good to see everyone today. Welcome to our monthly clean energy and transportation meetings, our monthly industry meetings for Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition. It is a happy Thursday, April, November 20th, 2025. Glad to be here with you. We have some fantastic speakers for you today that will talk about how we can continue to move forward to reduce pollution in our environment by using technologies beyond electrification. But before we do that, as always, I want to share with you all that next Thursday is Thanksgiving, and so our office will be closed, but we do want you to celebrate with your family and friends and all that good stuff and get your chance to reflect on 2025 as you get ready for 2026. Also want to thank so many of you who have come out to our various meetings and events this year, just showing up so much for the organization. So we're really glad about how so many of you come out to all the different uh, meetings, events, and things. And we still have a few more things we're going to do before the end of the year. But one thing I wanted to share with you today, one is that we're having a popcorn fundraiser. So everyone loves popcorn. And so I will put that in the chat shortly, a link so that you can buy some popcorn. You only have until Sunday. It's really delicious. It's double good popcorn. And once you have one, you just can't stop. It's irresistible. So buy you some popcorn between today and Sunday. Looking forward to you all doing that. Also also another thing on December 2nd, we're going to have our Giving Tuesday. We're going to have a holiday party on December 2nd on Giving Tuesday. We're going to have a holiday party. And so we're really excited about our holiday party. It'll be December 2nd, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. At our corporate office, 899 North Capitol Street, Northeast, Washington, D.C. There is parking underground at our building. There's also street parking. There's parking in nearby lots and buildings as well. And we're right near Union Station, so you can actually take the train to Union Station, and we're about a 3 to 5 minute walk from Union Station. So make sure you register for the event, our holiday party on Tuesday, December 2nd. Also, that week, we'll host a uh, ESG roundtable. And so that'll be pretty good, 10 a.m. As well at our building as well. And how business can drive impact through clean energy, sustainability, as well, and advancing corporate responsibility through clean energy and sustainable transportation. So make sure you sign up for that event as well. We will also have our final industry meeting for the year on December 11th. That will take place as well, December 11th. So that'll be at 10 a.m. We have um, right now it's tentatively scheduled for in person, but we're probably going to do that virtual since we already have two events planned. We are supposed to do an event at Prince George's Department of Transportation on bio-based products. I'm going to reach out to them today and see if we can move that to January so we can wrap up for the year. We may be doing one other event in Baltimore, but we'll see. Otherwise, that'll be virtual and we'll let you know. I think that's going to be around the 16th of the month as well. So I wanted to share those. So make sure stay in touch. Lots going on as well. Um, just a couple other quick things. So now I want to get right into it because we do have some great speakers. Um, Dr. Maureen uh, Kinawa is the founder and sustainability educator at USFI Tech, a climate education and leadership platform that provides strategy, structure, and community for professionals, institutions, municipalities, utilities, agencies, and community leaders who want to help themselves and their communities create a cleaner planet. She has over 15 years of experience advancing clean water, renewable energy, sustainable infrastructure solutions. Her career began as a field engineer. She's a former professor of civil and environmental engineering at the University of California, Davis. She's taught sustainability and engineering courses as well as policy as well. She's a licensed professional engineer and holds a PhD in environmental engineering from the University of South Florida. In fact, one of our guys, I don't know if Steve from Greenbelt is on, he was looking for an engineering firm. So maybe we might get some business today. Also with us today, we have another PhD. All right, Mo Amol, did I get it right? And Dr. Mo is the founder and CEO of Verdant Energy, where he leads the firm's strategy to originate, develop, and finance renewable natural gas, modular power, clean fuels projects. He brings over 20 years of experience across the midstream, environmental, and renewable energy sectors with a focus on building scalable platforms that align strong returns with measurable sustainability impact. Prior to founding Verdant, uh, he held senior leadership roles at ConocoPhillips and Phillips 66, where he advanced emissions reduction initiatives, implemented risk-based asset strategies, and oversaw high-performance gas systems. He holds a PhD in chemical engineering with a specialization in gas processing and upgrading technologies. Let's put our hands together for this wonderful group of smart PhDs for us today to talk about how do we reduce pollution beyond electrification. We're not saying we're turning our back on electrification, but there's more than one way to reduce pollution. So without further ado, we'll turn it over to Dr. Maureen, who's always got involved with the coalition and just doing some great work. And we appreciate your participation and your leadership. And I think you went on the Hill with us this year as well. And so just appreciate she is on the move. Welcome.
Yes, thank you, Antoine, for that introduction. And uh, let me see. I'm guessing you can all see my screen. Yes?
It's just being yes.
Okay. Let me reduce this and okay. So with the 15 to 20 minutes that I have with you today, I want to talk about what Antoine introduced, alternative energy sources beyond electric. So there's synthetic aviation fuels, there's biodiesel, there's bioethanol, but what specifically I prepared a few slides for you today here is to get into renewable natural gas, which is a good alternative for medium and heavy duty size fleet vehicles, trucks that can't quite work with electric. So what is renewable natural gas? So renewable natural gas is interchangeable with what we consider fossil-based conventional natural gas. So this is a gaseous fuel that is derived from biomass or other renewable resources. It's not a particular new technology. It is well established, and humans have been producing natural gas for quite a while. And in the country, we see California is the leader in having operational renewable natural gas facilities. There's over 200 facilities there in California. Texas is the second with 57, and New York comes third with about 49 established renewable natural gas systems. So it's not something new, but Maryland, has about five, and there is great potential to certainly increase it, quite a bit. I think there's one study that showed that Maryland can actually get into the hundreds, if we actually invest in this technology. So my goal today is really just to give you an overview of what is renewable natural gas, what are the benefits, what are the considerations we need to be thinking about to make that transition, what are the cost considerations. So I prepared this diagram because I wanted to give a quick overview of how we actually end up with renewable natural gas. So I'll start off on the left-hand side where I'm showing different feedstocks. So we can take livestock manure, we can take landfill gas, food waste, wastewater, these types of wet waste, put them in an anaerobic digestion process, digest that waste to produce biogas, which is about 60% methane. That's one route we can take. The other route is we can take cellulosic crops. Think of sorghum and switch grasses. We can also take forest residues and waste. We can take ag residues or municipal solid waste. Now, municipal solid waste is not including the food waste. This would be the paper waste, the wood waste. Think of furniture that's tossed out. We can also take rubber, leather, put that through a thermal gasification process to produce what's called syngas, which is interchangeable with biogas. Once we have that biogas, then we can use it in a combined heat and power system, just direct heating if we're heating buildings, for example, or burn it to produce electricity. But what really brings us here today is renewable natural gas. So we can take that 60% methane that's in the biogas, strip it of pollutants like CO2, siloxanes, to actually upgrade it into what we consider renewable natural gas, which is anywhere from 95 to 98% methane. From there, once we have that renewable natural gas, we can either compress it or freeze it or to liquefy it to CNG or LNG, or we can inject it directly into the natural gas pipeline. And either of those two options can be used for transportation, electricity production, using it in industry, or we can take that renewable natural gas, strip out the carbon out of it, and actually get hydrogen, which is also a renewable energy source. So why do we bother? Why are we here today to actually talk about RNG? So in my view, there's three main reasons why we should consider renewable natural gas. One, as we've already mentioned now, is the diversification of the energy market beyond electricity, beyond biodiesel. And so a study by the American Biogas Council found that if Maryland and Virginia took their landfill waste, their landfill gas, their wastewater, food waste, livestock waste, and produce biogas, it would actually be an 11.5 billion capital investment. It would lead to more than 20,000 construction jobs and more than 1,200 long-term jobs. If you think of that value chain, the people that have to collect this waste, operate these systems, right? Those would be job creation. From an environmental perspective, producing renewable natural gas is equivalent to taking 130,000 cars off the road in Maryland and Virginia. And then another big part of RNG is the fact that if we can leave as much of the fossil natural gas in the ground, then we're not adding additional CO2 into the atmosphere. And just something to note is that renewable natural gas does not add CO2 to the environment. Essentially, what we're doing is we're taking that CO2 that the plants took up to grow, and we're just burning it and releasing it back. So we're not adding any more CO2. From a circular economy perspective, it's not just the natural gas that we can get out of this value chain, even though that's what I'm primarily concentrating on. We can also get fertilizer out of the anaerobic digestion system. And from the thermogasification process, we can get ash that you can then use as a construction material. Of course, that depends on what you burn and how clean it is. However, again, that shows that there are other resources that can be gained from this. The other point to note is we are running out of space in landfills, and it doesn't make sense to just have food waste or municipal solid waste just taking up space in a landfill. Why don't we take that and actually use it for something that's beneficial? And of course, there are the public health benefits of improved air and water. Now, if we were to think of the DMV area, if we were to take all the available wastewater, food waste, ag residue, etc., that's in the Virginia, Maryland, and DC region, we see that cellulosic crops would actually produce us the most potential for RNG. So these are trillion BTUs per year. And in terms of anaerobic digestion, livestock manure in this region has the biggest potential, followed by landfill gas and food waste. DC would only really be producing that wastewater, RNG from wastewater. However, not every single ton of food waste, not every single ton of livestock waste can actually be captured. Realistically, what we can capture is about 43% of the available biomass can be used for RNG. So this is a study that was done by the American Gas Foundation, and they found that, if the technology for thermogasification, was really to be optimized, we would get to our current annual consumption of fossil-based renewable natural gas for commercial and residential in about 15 years. So that's the red line that I'm showing. We use about 3,000 trillion BTUs per year of fossil-based natural gas for commercial purposes and 5,000 for residential. So is RNG actually a clean fuel? And the answer is yes, compared to fossil natural gas. Now, of course, we have to calculate its carbon intensity throughout that value chain. What are the emissions that are released when we collect the waste, when we're processing it, the electricity that you have to purchase to actually run your digester system? There could be leaks during distribution and transportation, and of course the end use combustion. If the engine is not 100% combusting that methane, then there is some release. However, with that said, the graph here is showing that livestock waste and food waste actually have a negative carbon intensity because we're accounting for the avoided emissions. Those emissions, if that food waste was just sitting in the landfill, right, it's releasing emissions. If that livestock manure is just on the farm, in a pond, these emissions that are being released. So putting it into a digester and producing RNG really lowers the carbon intensity to the point where it's in the negative. Now, in terms of cost considerations, I won't go blow by blow, describing each one of these things, but generally speaking, what we need to think about is what is the facility size going to look like? Of course, thinking about economies of scale, the larger the facility, you'd think the cheaper it's going to be, but that's not always the case because depending on the feedstock availability, a smaller facility might just work as fine. We also have to think about gas conditioning and upgrading. Like I mentioned, biogas is 60% methane, and we have to upgrade it. So we have to remove those pollutants to get it to 98% methane so that it's pipeline quality. That incurs a cost. To compress the gas, that's a cost. To operate the digester, the collection system, the electricity that you're going to need for all of that has a cost. The feedstock to, the tipping fees at the landfill, for example, I believe Maryland is about $84 per ton of municipal solid waste. So that is a cost to think about. And then the financial structure, that's something, depending on what the interest rate is, the repayment period. Then the pipeline interconnection costs. How far are you from where you're producing your RNG to pipeline? Of course, the further out it is, then the more expensive it's going to be. And also remember that pipeline injection is not the only option. You can transport that RNG to where it's going to be used in the form of CNG or LNG. Now, when you put all those costs together, this graph here is showing what the production costs look like. You'll notice livestock waste and wastewater are the most expensive. And the reason for that is number one, the food has already gone through the digestive system of the livestock and humans. And so the carbon has already been utilized. So how much energy you're getting per weight is much less. Livestock waste and wastewater is also diluted, right? It's in water. And so, the solids that you're getting to get that biogas are also limited. The other cost consideration that makes these too high is the fact that think of the things that human beings throw down the sewer. We're tossing pharmaceuticals, cosmetics. These things end up in the biogas and they have to be taken out of the biogas in the upgrading system. So that increases the cost. The landfill costs are lower than these two because you don't need to invest in a digester. The landfill itself is the digester, so that's a less capital cost you have to think about. But all in all, RNG is certainly the production costs are much higher than fossil-based natural gas. And so this is where the federal, the local, the state policies and incentives really play a role in making this system cheaper, and so it's more attractive for investors to invest in it. So this table, I realize, is a bit busy, but I thought it's a good comparison of where Maryland and Virginia compare in terms of state level policies and incentives that can really drive investment into RNG. So you'll see California with its 200 operational RNG facilities, checks the box in terms of like low carbon fuel standards, organic diversion mandates, procurement requirements, etc. And then I wanted to compare Maryland to other states with similar populations like Missouri and Wisconsin that have a similar population, fewer policy and incentives, but a different landscape. So Missouri, Wisconsin, of course, have way more livestock operations than Maryland, but you can see that due to an established infrastructure for converting their livestock waste into renewable natural gas, they have way more operational facilities than Maryland does. And of course, Wisconsin and Missouri are more farm-based compared to Maryland, which has more of an urban landscape. So, what will it take to transition here in the DMV to RNG? So, I thought these are the 5 things we need to think about. So, one is the development landscape. So, the local and the state policies and incentives, like the low carbon fuel standard, the utility procurement requirements, those would push to bring down that cost of RNG, but even if the cost is brought down, we also have to think about making the landscape in the state more attractive to developers and investors through making the regulatory and permitting landscape more favorable. In terms of the vehicle technology, of course, we need to deploy CNG and LNG compatible engines. This would look like either having conversion kits for the existing diesel engines or just buying new natural gas vehicles. The fueling infrastructure also has to be considered. So we need to have RNG fueling stations that make it easier for the fleets to supply their logistics. Either you're fueling on site or there's several local fueling stations. And of course, from a developer standpoint, having those reliable supply contracts will be attractive both for the user and the provider. We'll need workforce development. So it is a learning curve for operators and technicians to know how to store the gas, the safety protocols of the compressed and liquefied natural gases, and how to maintain these new vehicles. And then lastly, we'll need the operation and planning aspect of this transition. So that means, looking at the routes, what's the range that trucks have to go before they have an available station to fuel up, and the supply chain maintenance to really optimize the use of RNG. Okay, so that's what I had for you today. So I look forward to hearing your questions. And again, this RNG topic is near and dear to my heart. I actually got my PhD dissertation was looking at biogas production from livestock waste in different countries around the globe. And so I'm looking forward to see how we can bring this technology here to Maryland.
Well,
Okay.
we're going to hold you to that now because you talked about a low carbon fuel standard, and we're all hands on deck to try to make that happen. But we'll come back. I have a bunch of questions for you all. So, and I'm sure the audience will have some they can put in the chat as well. But I do have at least 3 or 4 questions for you all. So let's go to Dr. Mo. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks, Antoine and the coalition for their great leadership and for setting these up and what they're doing in the region. And thanks, Maureen, for the really good overview of RNG and how we can all work together in this space. So I'm Mo, Clean Verdant Energy. I'm going to touch on a little bit about the initiatives around what's going on in the industry, what we're doing as a company, and how we can start to look at how to build some of these projects in the region supporting the low carbon fuel standard that they touched on earlier. So why beyond electric? I mean, if you kind of think about the medium and heavy duty fleets and the refuse trucks, they're really harder to electrify in the near term. So if you think about the charging logistics, the weight, the duty cycles, they make it a lot more challenging. But these landfills and these wastewater facilities and the organics that Maureen touched on earlier, they're already producing energy from renewable natural gas from waste. And a lot of times these facilities, these sites are underusing this energy resource. So when we talk about beneficial use of RNG, you're really solving a waste problem, right? So a lot of these sites are, waste facilities, they're underserved communities. So when you use that energy that's renewable natural gas, you're really addressing a twofold solution, addressing a waste problem for the community and producing a low-hanging fruit energy resource that could be beneficial to the environment and the communities at the same time. So when we talk about the fleets and the stations and whatnot, that's another low-hanging fruit because that's existing infrastructure that's already in place. So tying in that low-hanging fruit energy resource to infrastructure that's already in place, whether it's your CNG stations, your fleets, the pipelines, that's existing infrastructure that doesn't have to be rebuilt to tie in that resource to community benefits. And then again, as you mentioned earlier, there is a significant greenhouse gas reduction benefit with using these type of low carbon fuels like RNG, because there are different kinds of methane. When it's being produced as an RNG, it's actually capturing CO2 from the environment before it becomes RNG. So it's going through that whole process. So there's a lot of analogies between solar and storage and electrification when you even think about just the chemical route with RNG, because it's doing a lot of that when it's in the plant form before it becomes a waste product. So it's capturing that in a natural way, if you want to think of it that way. So what does Verdant Energy do, and what kind of initiatives are we looking at? So we're in this for the long haul. We're set up to do exactly what was described earlier, to turn these ideas and these concepts into projects that could benefit the region and the community. We are set up as a developer operator. So we're developing projects, bringing in technology solutions and capital resources to bring these to life. And one of the things when you think about some of the underserved sites, why aren't there capital dollars flowing to these sites? Some of them are challenging, right? So some of the things that you have to look about to make a project pencil out economically is around the amount of gas resources that you're going to see from that site. But we're looking at it from a very innovative perspective, right? So if you want to think about what can technology do to unlock some of these sites, there's a lot of things that we can do as far as more modular built solutions that wouldn't necessarily have to be built at the waste site. You can fabricate them in a more efficient way and deploy them to use less capital resources. So things like that to make them more accessible and doable. And then on the other side of things, we're also standing up a capital solutions platform. So if you're not just looking for technical expertise, but if you're looking at ways to fund some of these projects, this is what that arm's also set up to do as well. So some of our core activities in this space when it comes to the waste sites, obviously Maureen touched about the different type of feedstocks. So you've got landfills and wastewaters. They've all got their pros and cons. The landfill is a digester by itself, right? So that infrastructure is there already digesting these waste products and turning them into gas that's currently just either flared or going into the environment underutilized. So that's a low-hanging fruit that could be turned into a fuel directly for beneficial use. Then on the wastewater side and on the manure side, a lot of them, some of them do have digesters already. That makes it less challenging to put in a facility that can turn that into renewable natural gas. But in some cases, you will have to put in a digester, which is basically a way to convert the waste, solid waste, whether it's the manure or waste water sludge into renewable natural gas. But anyway, so that's on the facility side, and then tying it into the fleets and the off-takers. That's the other aspect of what we do as well. So some of the things behind the scenes on making these economic and impactful to the communities is obviously getting them tied into the fleets that complete that pathway to make it a low carbon fuel. So, I know there's a lot of municipalities out there and private fleets operating in the region there. This isn't something that you have to spend a lot of time on, but know that your resources can be put to bear without much effort to complete this whole value chain in making this RNG story come to light, just with using the current infrastructure that's in place today. And we do a lot of that value chain interconnection. So we really sit right in the middle of that value chain, right? So connecting the landfill owners, the wastewater facility municipalities that are currently either flaring or not using that resource. And then we connect it all through that value chain, through the making the economics pencil out, working with off-takers that can make the projects economic, the CNG stations behind the scenes that are actually help build that story around local use. So we bring that all together to make these projects happen. So let's think about some use cases, right? So we talked about all what we could do, but what are some concrete use cases around how we can go beyond electric to use these low carbon fuels, and particularly RNG? So in the municipalities and the region over there, you might have some fleets that are currently on RNG already, right? So either thinking about it or already on RNG. But if you want to complete that whole value chain story, there are landfills and wastewater facilities out there in your local communities that you can tie to that whole story, and that completes the whole value proposition around community impact, using your local waste resources to fuel those fleets in an impactful way. So that helps with the carbon offsets and also provides revenue for those fleets to complete that value chain. Then there are some users, transits and school buses that may be on CNG right now, but are currently using RNG. And that's another low-hanging fruit, because that's gas that's just called CNG right now, but could be switched to RNG through behind-the-scenes contracts. Just paperwork, some little paperwork that folks like our group and others can help take care of. And you get the credit for completing that pathway of converting from CNG to RNG without pretty much not as much capital intensity as you would with a diesel conversion, for instance. And then, you have your waste sites, like your wastewater facilities and the landfills that they touched on, and the manure facilities that could either inject into a local interconnect or tied into a CNG fleet as an application. That whole local production versus local use story is a very compelling use case that has a significant community impact story behind it. And then another thing that we're also seeing that I think could be also a benefit is around the cost efficiency, right? So utilizing shared resources, the infrastructure that's in place, a lot of these smaller underserved sites like the landfills, to make it more economic, you could share the resources, right? One couple of sites might have an interconnect that's nearby. You wouldn't have to build another interconnect. You could all share that same. So it just takes a lot of that planning, bringing all the stakeholders together to understand what's available, what can be done, and how can we make this work as a team. So how do we actually make a project work? I guess that's a segue to that part of the conversation. And I think Maureen touched on quite a bit of that pretty well. And essentially, in a nutshell, you want to identify the two sides of the equation, right? You've got your feedstock, where you're producing the waste, and then the end user. So on the feedstock side, those are your municipalities, privates, anyone who's producing that waste resources is a source for RNG. And you can get a developer like us to help make those projects viable and get a royalty check. So, identifying the waste sources, landfills, wastewaters, any kind of organics, especially the cellulosics that Maureen pointed out, those are qualified for D3 RINs. Those are the most valuable type of RNG or renewable fuels that are out there because they're scarce resources. And then all the other part about making it work, the technical, commercial screening, those are all very important. Proximity to pipeline and CNG stations, but they're all things that there's information out there that can be looked at through developers like us to make these projects happen. And aligning stakeholders, obviously, with the community being involved and educated about what the benefits are. That's all part of what we're doing today, right? And then structuring it in a way that can be economic. You can never forget that part. So that's where setting out prudent practices around the special purpose vehicles for capital, the offtake. We have a lot of access to off-takers, corporates that actually buy the whole, that actually help monetize the programs. And then your EPCs, the engineering firms that help to do the engineering and construction work. But anyway, so long story short, Verdant is here to help. We are set up to be your technical and commercial resources to make these projects happen in the region. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we're setting up a capital solutions arm. So if you have any developers out there or municipalities that have access or are working in the landfill or wastewater or waste space that need resources, feel free to reach out. Or I'll leave my contact in the chat, or you could reach out to Anton directly to get a hold of me. I think there's quite a bit of opportunities that we can do together in the region, and be happy to discuss more about how we can collaborate.
All right, folks, if you can put your questions in the chat. I just want to get right into it. So both of you, if you can respond on the first thing is, how can a low carbon fuel standard help advance renewable natural gas in the region?
I think that So I think the low carbon fuel standard is an extra incentive on top of the renewable fuel standard that's already in place with the federal program, right? So the federal program started probably 2005, was further enhanced in 2007. So it stood the test of time. That is just one of the two main revenue stacks that make these projects work. And the low carbon fuel standard in California was another one that's got some precedent that's also stood the test of time. I believe some other states in the West Coast have also used that same type of program to enhance that whole revenue stack. But I think having a solution in the region here would also be a way to not have to route those gas molecules to far away East Coast, right? You could start to use those same standards and the fact that you're local to get the benefits without having to go cross country. So there is a lot of benefit from having a local fuel standard, from making these projects more feasible from a revenue standpoint and from an environmental impact as well.
Yeah.
Dr. Maureen, you want to jump on that?
Not much to add. I think he touched on the point that what the renewable natural not renewable natural gas, the low carbon fuel standard, what it does is it brings down the investment cost, right, of running these systems, and so it makes it more attractive. So I think what he mentioned is correct.
Okay, so the next question I have for both of you, or either one of you can jump in on this, is I was really blown away by that map that you, Dr. Maureen, that you showed about. I know, like with hydrogen and renewable diesel and biodiesel, California has such a large market share, and they also have such a large market share with electric vehicles. I was just blown away that about how much market share California has for renewable natural gas. I just would never have believed that they were so far ahead of um of Texas and even where Mo is from, Oklahoma or places like that. Why does that exist? I was blown away by that. I mean, it wasn't even close.
Ah,
Anyone have any idea about that before I go to one of our other stakeholders?
well, my guess would be, just generally speaking, California usually seems to be ahead of the curve when it comes to any environmental based type policies. So, um, like the organic diversion SB 1383, that was unrolled like 10 years ago.
Wow.
And so it was to take food waste, divert it out of landfills. And then they also had some policies like PGE, the power utility companies have a certain percentage of their electricity has to come from, renewable sources. And so, they've been at this for quite a while. So I think it's also just time that they've been doing this, and they have those policies like I showed in that table. It's not just the federal level, but at the state level, they pretty much have several incentives that drive or push um, towards these. And then, of course, it's just the fact that also California, um, just thinking out loud, in terms of livestock, they have plenty of livestock farms, they have crop farms, and so they have the feedstocks and the population, all the wastewater. They have the numbers to really develop these systems. Mo, do you have
Wow.
anything else you think why
Yeah, I think
California?
you covered it.
Mhm.
Those would be my thoughts as well.
Yeah.
All right. If we can go really quickly to unmute Joanne, so she can ask her question. Otherwise, she can put it in the chat.
Now, hi, this is Joanna Ivancic with Advanced Biofuels USA, and uh, we can't put anything in the chat. Chat's disabled, so that's why you're not getting questions in the chat.
Oh, we got undisable that.
Okay.
Okay, I was wondering what was happening. I'm like, it's quiet today. All
So,
right, let me
um,
figure that out. Okay.
so what I wanted to, one of the, I would agree that especially because there's a
Yeah, I could
lot of
put in the chat now. I'm sorry about that.
there's also a lot of dairies in California, and a lot of the RNG the anaerobic digestion is at those dairies, and their utilities have gotten really behind it. They're really pushing it and gotten involved. But my question was, what does it take to retrofit a diesel to be able to use CNG and RNG? Is it how much time, how much expense do you need special people? Is there a company that does it like they do the Optimus for retrofitting for biodiesel? What's entailed in that? I've always wanted to know, so maybe you guys can tell me.
Thank you, Joanne.
I think it's all of the above. It's it takes a little more effort, obviously, to convert CNG to RNG. Diesel to RNG, then CNG to RNG, obviously, and then some equipment retrofits. But there are people, resources, and capability out there, and incentives, as I check, that could help support that. I don't have the details off the top of my tips, coming on the top of my head, but we can definitely share some information on that if you'd like.
That, that would be real nice. Thank you. I'll put my email in the chat now.
Dr. Maureen, did you want to chime in on that? Do you have any data on that as well, or any vendors that you all work with that you all know of that work on conversions? Because that's one of the things that happened with RNG here, CNG here, with some of the fleets that we work with. They didn't have enough technicians, enough training. Any technology, when you bring it in new, you got to make sure the workers are on board with it, right? Otherwise, they find ways to, disrupt, right? The progress and change. So anything you can do about any information you can share with that as we move forward with this would be great.
So From what I understand in terms of vehicle technology upgrade, you can either replace or retrofit the engines. So there's conversion kits that can modify the fuel system so that it's natural gas compatible. And then, the existing diesel tank, the tank itself can be swapped for high pressure CNG or a liquefied tank. So you can do that. I don't know how much that costs, or you can just buy a new natural gas vehicle that's already designed to that's compatible with this fuel.
No worries. We'll make sure we have enough folks around us that can get some of those numbers as well. And when we do our next round of discussions, we'll bring some additional players, and you all can refer some folks as well. So what I like to do, because we're running late on time, I don't see any questions in the chat. I'd love to give each of you a chance to.
There
uh,
is.
Okay. There it is. Let me see. Let me see. Oh, okay. Hi, I'm a recent grad from AU with a master's in environmental policy. I'm interested to know the political landscape for getting RNG to scale in the DMV specifically. What are your reflections on or predictions on the new Virginia governor's transportation sustainability goals and grants?
Hmm.
All right. Any thoughts on that? One, is there appetite in our region for RNG? And two, do you think with the new governor coming into Virginia that she may be supportive of RNG? What are your thoughts on that?
For the second part, for the Virginia governor, I don't know enough to speak on that. However, the DMV landscape, the reason for actually having this conversation is really to start educating people about the benefit of RNG, because I don't think enough people know about other fuels beyond electric or the biodiesel. I think those certainly get more time than RNG. And so from a state level, I think the two policies that would be really attractive in Maryland and Virginia is the low carbon fuel standard. So, the thing about California is they have both the federal renewable fuel standard and also they have a state level low carbon fuel standard. So that it drives investment into RNG because it makes it a more attractive investment. So if we can push for those types of policy. The other policy that could work for both states, Maryland and Virginia, is the RNG procurement requirements. And so this is something that California has, the power utility companies have to meet a certain threshold of where their electricity or energy comes from. And so if that can be implemented here as well, I think that would drive things. Now, in terms of Virginia, Maryland has a waste diversion mandate and Virginia does not. So that would be something else that if Virginia put that in place could drive the push, to collect food waste and convert it into RNG.
All right, well, let me do this. I want to give Dr. Gloria 30 seconds. So we got 3 minutes left. I need to make a couple quick announcements. So Dr. Gloria, if you could, someone can unmute her really quickly and give a quick question. Dr. Gloria.
Oh, I just want to compliment everyone for bringing solution-oriented ideas to the table. It is so refreshing, especially during this current climate and environment that we're working in. And I just want to encourage everyone to keep going forward. Your ideas are splendid and are ahead of its time. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. So let me just say, first, let me thank you all for being here today. We are very committed to trying to get a low carbon fuel standard, not only in Maryland, we want to try to do that in Virginia. We just, our board just committed to having a policy committee, an advocacy and policy committee that can work in a structured way. We work on a lot of issues on an even more structured way to really drill down on some of these issues. So I like what you were saying about food diversion law in Virginia, and of course with the low carbon fuel standard in both of those community states as well. And then we'll look at some other 2 or 3 bills that we can add to maybe a 5 or 6 bill list that we can work on for the next year or so. So I want to thank you all for that as well. I also want to remind everyone on December 2nd, we'll have our holiday party at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Make sure you register today. Also, if you've not paid your dues for 2026, now is the time to do that. I'll put it in the chat so that you can pay your dues for 2026. So make sure you do that now. It's really important. And the last thing is, don't forget to make sure you buy some of that double good, delicious popcorn. If you've never had it before, uh, you're gonna say, "Oh my God, where has it been all my life?" And if you have it, you know what I'm talking about. So, without further ado, I want to thank our wonderful speakers. Thank you for being here, Mo, and both doctors, both PhDs. Hopefully, you all we can look at doing an in-person roundtable, probably at Washington Gas in the spring. And so we'll look at trying to put that together and we'll have a little more time to plan it. So let's look at trying to do that maybe in Marchish and or May, probably May, and then that'll give us a good 5 to 6 months before our annual conference, which will be in October 2026, which will be celebrating 15 years of leadership and service. Without further, I want to thank our staff and consultants and interns for helping put this meeting on today, and all of you for being with us as well. Take care and have a happy Thanksgiving. Take care.